Welcome to the first upholstery. So what I'm going to do is I'm upholstering a drop-in seat. Something very simple, very basic. And all I'm doing is I'm recovering it. I'm going to go through a second video which will show you all about upholstery, but I think it's easier to do it in parts because people have been asking me, how do I recover? How do I recover? And sometimes it's a little bit fiddly, but I'm going to show you on this, and it's really simple. And once you follow these steps, it's absolutely easy. But the reason why these are called drop-in seats is simple because this seat drops into place. In upholstery, we keep things really simple, and I think in the building game in general, we keep things as they are. So this has got a seat that drops into place, so that means it's a drop-in seat. And normally it's either screwed in at the bottom or it's fixed from the sides as well. So you would be able to tell, or sometimes you have a drop-in seat where there's a little kind of catch underneath here and underneath there, and then you undo those and then it just pops out. With this one, it's got 4 screws. So I'm going to take the screws off and then I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm going to do with this. So I've got my screwdriver and all I'm doing is undoing the screws. If they are a bit rusty, your best thing to do is get some new ones that are exactly the same size as the ones you're taking out and the same thickness as well. Just go down to any hardware store and you can get those, and make sure you take one of the originals so you can match it up and make sure it's the right size. Or if they're all good, put them in a jar. Or what I like to do sometimes, and I should have it here, is put them on some masking tape. So that's all of them taken off, and then you go like that, and then it comes out, and I'm just going to drop that down. If the screws don't come out, what is best to use is a little bit of masking tape, because they could drop out and then you've lost them and that's it. So what I would recommend you doing is just taping over so they stay in their place. And if you're fortunate enough to have a workshop like me, what I normally do is recycle my masking tape. So I've got some on the side there that I've used for painting, and it's still sticky, so I just use it again. It's no big deal. And then just tape those on there so it don't come out. And the one that did come out, so that one there, I just tape it onto here. So the ones that are still in there are not going to come out, and the one that I have taken out is screwed on there, and that's it, ready. So on a drop-in seat, what you've got is the top and also the bottom. I know you're going to tell me, oh, what are you telling us that for? We obviously know that, but this might be the first time someone's done this. And if it's the first time, I want you to understand that here, you've got either staples or you might have tacks in there. Now these have to come out for you to actually put some new cover on there. That's what needs to happen. And if you're just doing a simple recover, let's say for instance this foam is really good. There's nothing wrong with this. There's no bits in it. The fabric's not eaten out or something hasn't burnt through it. It's absolutely fine. It feels good, and all I'm gonna do is just put a recover on that. Sometimes on these, you'll be able to tell which is the front and which is the back. If it looks very similar, and this one I can tell that's the back, that's the front, you can just make a little mark and just write back and front. And if you're using velvet, that's going to be very important, and I explain that to you once we get to the fabric. But for now, what we have to do, we have to take these staples out. Now if you have tacks in there, you're going to need a tool which will take out the actual tacks. This one I also use for staples as well, and this is another one that I use for staples, taking stuff out like that. And what I tend to do is have a little craft hammer, so one of those, and I sometimes tack it in there. What I see people doing very often is when they take the staples out, they go on top and they try to take it out. And what tends to happen then is the fabric gets caught in it, and it can take a little while to do that. I go under the fabric and under the staple, and that normally works it really easy. Let me show you what I mean. So there's the staple and there's the edge of the fabric, and I get right underneath it. And I probably don't even need to use my hammer because I can see that with the fabric, that's starting to come up already. So look, that staple's already out. I would recommend working away from yourself. So over there, if I was to take the staples out here, I had the potential of doing myself some injury. And then when I lean over, all of this could catch on my clothes, and I don't want that. I look quite smart, don't I? Eh? Got to make an effort every now and again. So go underneath and just lift them up. That's all I'm doing, underneath and lift up. Sometimes you might have two staples very, very close to each other. And as you can see, look at that, these staples are coming out. I don't even need to use the hammer because the weight of the fabric and this is just lifting it all out. So you're gonna have to repeat this process all the way around and get all of these staples out, because where these staples are is exactly where you want to staple. So I've got to one corner there, and then I'm going this way now. So now I've got one side done, and what I basically do is I take those staples out fully. So you can either use the pliers if you haven't got a tool like this. Now this is used for taking the staples out, and all I'm doing is I'm pinching them, and this does have the potential to just cut them. What you don't want to do is create more work for yourself. So just give it a nice little grab and then just pull them out. You can normally take out two at the same time. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to catch any of these on my clothes or on myself, and staples are lethal. Once you've got them up like that, if you just graze your hand across them, you will cut yourself. And I know that through experience. When I first started doing this, the amount of cuts I had on my hand was just unbelievable. And sometimes if you're taking these staples out, you might cut some off too far. This tool just pinches it, but you could do the same thing with the pliers. Like go along really lightly and just feel that you've got everything out. If you've got something that's a little bit of a stubby one, you can just, like there's one there, just hammer it down. If it's your first time actually recovering something or doing any form of upholstery, take pictures. So take a picture before you start taking anything apart, and then once you've taken apart just a little bit, take another picture and take another picture. These are going to be really, really useful because you need a reference. And once you've got a reference, then you know how the fabric was put on before. If you do exactly the same or roughly the same, it should work really, really easy. It should just go on like a dream. Now, normally on these, you get a lot of staples in there. So be prepared that it's gonna hurt your hands, especially if it's the first time you've ever done this. Your hands are gonna be feeling like you've been to the gym. So what I tend to do is I do a bit and then change tool, and sometimes bring in the hammer just to variate it. Otherwise, what I found when I first started doing this is my hand will just start freezing up. So to prevent that, just keep on changing, so you don't necessarily have to do them in a particular order, as long as you get them done. Last one coming up. What I tend to do is just lift the fabric up sometimes, because that frees up the staple. You don't have to do it that way. You can just find your own way of doing it, but as long as you're careful and do not cut your hand, because these are very, very sharp. So now all the staples are out, what I'm doing is just running my finger around really gently, just to see if there's any that are snapped off. And if there is, got my little hammer, and you just hammer those down so it's nice and smooth. There's a tip that I'll give you. If you're running your finger across, try not to put too much pressure on. Just do it really, really lightly. Because if you put pressure on and you're going around, it will cut you. Cool. Now that's all done. All the staples are out. So you move those staples out of the way. And normally, because I'm doing a little video, I'm just trying to be quick, but I would normally clear up every single staple, because when you're putting another fabric on, you don't want that fabric being ripped, and it will get ripped by the staples. So I move them right out of the way there. Cool. Then I'm ready to take this fabric off. And there's still some staples in there. And then put that rubbish over there. Now basically you could, if you wanted, you could use this as a kind of template, but what I normally do is when that fabric's on there, before I've taken anything off, I get my scrap piece of fabric, or if you've got a big piece of fabric, you can just roll it out and then just cut out the square that you need. So the simplest form is just to put it on there and see if you've got enough to cover the sides and the front and the back. Simple. Just seeing if that fits. If you are using a velvet, velvet has a pile. So if you've ever sat on a velvet chair, you would know that when you sit on it, you wipe it down and then all of the fabric goes in the same direction. What you want to have is that pile running towards the front. So as I said, this will come quite important. So you've got the back and you've got the front. So obviously put the front towards you, then you get your fabric, place it on top. You could even do this on the bench. If you had the fabric laid out completely, what you could do is just feel which way the pile goes. And if the pile is smooth as it comes towards you, that's what you want. I think it's used for back in the day, you know, like if you had biscuits and you had some crumbs, you go like that, dust it all off, and then the pile is nice and smooth. If you had to go that way, the opposite way, all the crumbs will go into the actual pile, which wouldn't really be a good look. Now all I'm doing is just checking that I've got enough to cover the sides, and I know I've got plenty for the back and the front, but the sides is a little bit shorter, but as it's a scrap, and I just want to show you how to recover. That's all I'm going to be showing you here. So that's absolutely fine. Got enough on there. Just get my fingers on and pull it. What I can then do is just cut the material. So I've cut off that bit of scrap, which I don't need, and that little bit's dusty there, but that will come in useful for something. So I'm going to save that. So there is my fabric I'm going to use, and this is the front, so the pile is nice and smooth going that way. So you've got to make sure that your bench is clean, especially if you're using a light fabric like that. It's yellow, black mark on there, you know it's going to stain up. So you wouldn't know that it's stained until you've finished it, and then it's like, oh, it's all over. What I normally do is have a clean bit of material. And I just put that on the bench. And there you go. Because this bench gets used for everything. Gets used for wood, screwing in, you name it. It's a bit dirty. So now I've got the fabric on there, just like that. It's really rough. I'm just going to turn it over. Make sure I place this roughly in the middle. So I've got enough to pull over each side. And when I first started doing upholstery, I used to have loads. I mean, there was a massive bit over there, but in time, you'll be able to get where you can just have a little bit pulling over. But whatever way it works for you, just give it a go. And if you get it wrong, not a problem, start again. What I normally do is I staple the side, top, bottom, okay? And then I do corner, 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 corner. And that roughly is the way to do it. Now I've got a staple gun, And because I do a lot of stapling, I've spent a bit of money on this. You don't really need to buy something as industrial as this. You can just get one of those manual staple guns. I don't have one, but just a manual one where it goes doof, 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 just like that, one of those. That's simple enough. So on here, I've got compressed air. Got my compressor underneath there. And don't pull it too tight because there's nothing for it to actually pull the tension across. So this is the first one. And then all I'm doing here now is I've got the tension there, and then all I'm doing is just bringing that axis. You can see that? See the ripple that's there? It's a bit like a wave. That's what I'm creating. So I'm just getting that fabric out of there and just pulling it over the side. That's all I'm doing. And it doesn't have to be super tight. If you pull it super tight, what will happen is you could potentially start pulling down the foam. You don't want to create that. What you want to do is just make sure it's nice and even, and then lay it down flat and do the same thing again. 1, 2, and 3. And that's the 2 sides done at the moment. Then we do the back, do exactly the same process, where we don't pull it too tight because we don't have any tension on this side. So you just pull it where it's nice, and then we staple 1, 2, 3. And if you notice, I'm trying to keep the same line of staples. So where those staples were before that was just taken out, I'm keeping that same line. I'm not going all the way down here. I'm just keeping it in that same little line there. And exactly the same process. Bring the excess up, create that little wave, and just let it fold over the top. And I'm not putting too much tension on it. I just want it to sit nice and easy. Do the same thing. So I've got all 4 sides done, no corners. As you can see, look. So what you want to do with the corners is you open it up and you just fold it over to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a staple at that angle. So the staple's going to go right here. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner. So if I stapled there, I'm going that way. And do the same thing that you did on the sides. You're going to bring that up. Just get a bit of that slackness out of there. And then just fold it in a bit. As long as that's all nice and smooth like that, go for it. Do the corner. Same thing again on this side. Just going up and trying to get that shape right there. And then do the opposite one there. Get that bit out. Now, that looks like a seat already. You've just recovered it. That's all we're doing here. We're just recovering a seat in a very simple form. So as we've got those bits done, then we can just start tidying it up. And the way that you tidy it up is you can start on the sides, or you can start on the back, wherever you want to start. It's absolutely fine. And all I'm doing now is folding that material over, just bringing it over nice and easy, remembering that I don't have any tension on the opposite side, so don't over pull it, and then just staple. So here, what we've got is a gathering of material. And what I was taught is if you can't see it, you don't need it. So all this fabric behind here, see this fold? So there's that and there's that bit there. We don't see it, we don't need it. It's only going to create a bulk, and then when you go to put it back, there's this kind of step. You don't need that. So the way to get rid of it is cut, not all the way right up onto the front. You just cut just a little bit past the staple, and then the bit behind it. So I'm cutting out this shape here, because if you fold it over, the bit that's underneath there, which is that, I don't need it, and that bit there, I don't need it. So you cut them out, and then now the fabric can sit a lot flatter in that corner. There are a number of different ways to do a corner, and I'll show you all of them as we go through this series, but this is probably the most simplest way. If you can wrap a Christmas present, you can do a corner. It is really, really simple. Some people like to make it complicated, but the reality is it's like wrapping up Christmas presents. And then we staple that, and then we'd repeat the same process over here. So, come like that. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about all of that at the moment because we can cut that off at the end. I don't know what it is with me. I do like a fold. I like a fold in the front. I don't know why. I just like a nice little fold. Okay. So now, get into the final stages, because you just repeat the process all the way around is what you do. And you just look at the kind of pleats that you're creating. Sometimes you can do, I'll tell you what some people have done. I'll tell you what I've done. At the beginning stages, I used to put temporary tacks in. And what a temporary tack is something that's like this. You do it on an angle, so it's not permanent. And as it's not permanent, it holds the fabric in place. And then you make sure you've got it all right. Then you can take that out, or you staple for definite right where that temporary is, and then take the temporary out. But if you're feeling confident, just take it out and then just staple. But the more you do, the more practice you have, the better it will be. Another little tip is on these little bits where it's like nice and cornered like that, you can just pull it so it gathers up underneath there and copy what was there before. So there's a few styles that I'm showing you on here. One where it's folded, and I like my little pleats. I do like a pleat. And then the other ones where at the front, it's just gathered around. So now we've got it all done. We don't need this fabric. So you just cut that off. You can either use your big scissors, or if you've got a knife, just cut it off with a very sharp blade. And then normally what you would have on some chairs, you would have a thing which is called a bottom cloth. The bottom cloth, you've guessed it, it goes on the bottom. And that will cover up all of these bits. So you would have a bottom cloth that would go like that on top. And I'm going to show you that in another video, because it can be very fiddly, but also very easy. So you put a bottom cloth on there, and then that covers it all up. But this one never came with a bottom cloth. And it needs those air vents that are there, so when someone sits on it, it doesn't make that noise. And you know what noise I'm talking about. So there is your seat. It's just recovering. That's all we're doing. The foam is okay. We're just going to recover it, and that's it. But in the other video, we're going to cover how you stick on the foam, how you do different corners, all that kind of stuff. Cutting the shape of the foam, the whole shebang. But I just wanted to show you how easy this is to recover. So once you've learned how easy it is to recover, then we take our steps back, and then we put on the foam. And then we cut out the foam. Then we stick the foam. All those bits can be a little bit daunting. So I wanted to show you the end result, which is really, really simple. You saw what we did there. We just cut it over. And on a chair like this, it just, that's the front, spruces it up instantly. Look at that. Now if we change the top, and that's what I'll do in the next one, show you the top, and also I'll take this all off and do the foam as well. So this will be the chair that we'll use all the time, so you'll see how it works. And I know what you're thinking. You've taken the staples out, you've recovered it, you've put staples in there, and then now you're going to take this all off again to show us. It's got to be done. But for now, what I want you guys to do is tell me what you think. Do you think you'll be able to do that? Or do you want it easier? Do you want it harder? What is it you want? Just let me know. All right? See you soon.